Tuesday unfolded as usual. At precisely 5:30 p.m., Macy Lester departed from the law firm, bidding her co-workers farewell in her customary way and carefully placing all her paperwork into folders. The drive home lasted 20 minutes. She navigated the familiar streets of Dallas, soft music playing, pondering what to fix for dinner. Through a decade of marriage to Lewis, she'd become used to the rhythm and certainty of their shared life, and she found contentment in it. The house greeted her in silence. Lewis hadn't yet returned from the insurance office. His workday normally ended an hour later. Macy changed into her home clothes, tied her hair into a ponytail, and began cooking. She opted for roast chicken with vegetables. Lewis favored simple, hearty meals. While the chicken sizzled in the pan, she chopped salad, set rice to cook, and laid the table. By 7 o'clock, the sound of keys turned in the lock. Lewis walked in, composed and unruffled as ever. He kissed her cheek, asked how her day had gone, then headed to the bathroom to wash up. Over dinner, they spoke of the usual: weekend work plans, the need to replace the broken faucet in the kitchen. Lewis described a difficult client who could not settle on an insurance policy. Macy complained about a new intern who constantly mixed up paperwork. After the meal, they settled in the living room to watch TV. Lewis leafed through the newspaper, offering remarks on the news occasionally. Macy flipped through a magazine. Quiet and cozy, as always. Their relationship had long since settled into a peaceful routine. No storms of passion, no surprises, just the steady domestic life of two people accustomed to each other. No ruses of humiliation, no disgusting struggles. Much bigger, too, accustomed to the surface. Macy slipped through each other. At 8:30, the doorbell rang. Macy lifted her eyes from the magazine. They were expecting no one. Lewis, too, stared toward the door in surprise. "Who could that be?" she asked. "No idea," he answered, but he rose to open it. Standing on the doorstep was Macy's mother, Gloria Lester, grocery bag in hand, wearing her usual warm smile. "Mom," Macy exclaimed in surprise. "Didn't you say you were coming?" "I thought I'd surprise you," Gloria replied, stepping inside. "I got your favorite cakes from the bakery on Main Street. I thought we might spend the evening together." Lewis helped his mother-in-law off with her coat, and the three of them moved into the living room. Gloria, a spry 58-year-old, since her husband's passing some 5 years ago, had devoted herself completely to her bank job and to caring for her daughter. She visited Macy and Lewis often and truly cared for her son-in-law. He was always respectful, attentive, never irritable at her visits. Macy made tea and they gathered around the coffee table in the living room. Gloria chatted about her co-workers, the new procedures introduced by management, and a neighbor who had acquired a dog that barked too loudly. Lewis listened courteously, asking the occasional question. Macy basked in the comforting family ambiance. "How are things with you?" Gloria asked, slicing a piece of cake. "When are you finally going to give me grandchildren?" Macy felt a blush of embarrassment. Her mother had been posing that question for years. She and Lewis had no immediate plans for children. Not yet, though they weren't actively trying either. It simply hadn't happened, and neither felt pressured. "Mom, why bring this up again?" Macy said. "When the time's right, it'll happen." "You're not a little girl anymore, dear. You're 35. You shouldn't delay too long." Lewis tactfully diverted the subject, and the evening carried on with easy conversation. Gloria departed around 10, leaving a lingering warmth in the air. Macy and Lewis cleared the dishes, watched more TV, and went to bed. The next morning, Macy awoke at her usual hour. 6 o'clock. I.M. Lewis was already in the shower, preparing for work. She descended to the kitchen, made breakfast, eggs and bacon, with coffee. They ate in silence, each lost in thoughts of the coming day. At 7:30, Lewis left for work, and Macy began getting ready. When she stepped outside at 8 o'clock a.m., she noticed a plain white envelope on the porch steps. It lay there neatly, as if someone meant for it to be seen. There was no name, no address on it. Macy retrieved it, flipping it over in her hands. Plain, white, fairly thick. She slipped it into her purse and drove to work. The envelope stayed in her bag all day, and now and then she thought of opening it, but couldn't bring herself to during office hours. A suspicion told her its contents might be disturbing, so she resolved to wait until night. That evening, while Lewis was still out, she finally opened it. Inside, she found a color photograph and a folded paper. She first studied the photo and froze. The image showed a young black woman of about 25. Her hair was short, curly, and she smiled at the camera, standing beside a building, attractive with regular features and expressive eyes. What struck Macy most was how much she resembled her husband. Those eyes, the same lips, even in the smile, as though someone had taken Lewis's portrait and blended in feminine traits. Hands trembling, Macy unfolded the note. The handwriting was neat, printed. "Your husband is not who he claims to be. If you want to uncover who he was before, call this number. Don't say anything to him until you know the full truth." Beneath was a phone number with a Dallas area code. Macy sank onto the sofa, clutching the photo. Her heart pounded so loudly she could hear it in her chest. Her thoughts jumbled. She had no sense of what this could all mean. Who was this woman? Why did she resemble Lewis so much? And what truth did the sender intend? She reread the message, gazing at the photo, seeking some clue. But the photo said nothing. It was just a young woman smiling. No date. But from the quality and her dress, it looked to be taken about 15 years ago. By the time Lewis came home, Macy had tucked the envelope into her desk drawer. She couldn't decide whether to confront him immediately with the photo and note or investigate first. The message had specifically warned her not to tell him, and that warning felt sinister. At dinner, Lewis was his usual self, calm, conversational about work, asking after her day. Macy tried to appear normal, though she kept glancing at his face, seeking likeness to the woman in the photo. Indeed, upon close inspection, there was a resemblance, especially in the eyes and nose. "You're acting strange today," Lewis observed as they washed up. "Did something happen at work?" "No, everything's fine," Macy replied quickly. "I'm just a bit tired." The rest of the night passed as always, but Macy couldn't focus on anything. She couldn't rid herself of the photo and note. Lying in bed later, she listened to her husband's steady breathing, wrestling with what to do next. The following day at work, Macy drifted through her tasks, answering calls, typing documents, scheduling clients, but her mind kept returning to the mysterious envelope. During lunch, she called Brittany Archer, her college best friend. Brittany, an elementary school teacher nearby, and they often met for lunch or phoned just to talk. "Hi, friend," Brittany answered cheerfully. "How are you? Long time no talk." "Listen, can you meet after work today?" Macy asked, trying to hide her worry. "I need to talk about something." "Sure, what's wrong? You sound upset." "I'd rather hear it in person. See you at the cafe on Elm Street at 6 o'clock? "Okay, I'll be there." The rest of the workday dragged by. Macy retrieved the envelope repeatedly, rereading the note and staring at the photo. The resemblance to her husband was unnerving, more and more so. At 6 o'clock in the evening, she sat in a snug cafe on Elm Street, stirring her coffee anxiously. Brittany arrived 10 minutes later, a short, energetic woman with short hair and warm eyes. Friends for over 15 years, Macy trusted her above all. "Tell me everything," Brittany said, sliding into the seat. "You look pale." Macy wordlessly produced the envelope and handed over the photo. Brittany scrutinized it closely, frowning. "Who is this?" she asked. "She looks like Lewis, but she's a woman." "I found this envelope on my doorstep yesterday," Macy said softly, offering the note too. Brittany read it, her expression turning serious. "Macy, this is somebody's cruel prank," she finally said. "Someone's trying to ruin your life. Maybe Lewis has enemies at work or an ex." "I don't know," Macy admitted. "He's never had enemies. He's so composed, never argues." "What are you going to do, show him the photo?" "I'm afraid." The note warned not to tell him. What if there really is something he's hiding? Brittany turned the photo in her hands thoughtfully. "The resemblance is striking," she consented. "But look, there are look-alikes. Could be coincidence. Maybe, Macy whispered. I've been thinking about it all night. Louis and I have known each other for 11 years, married for 10, yet I know almost nothing about his life before we met. He says he grew up in Houston and that his parents died when he was young. I've never seen him as a child or teenager in any photos. Macy, you're being paranoid, Brittany said softly. Many people don't like to revisit their past. That's normal. But what if it isn't? Macy leaned in toward her friend. What if he's really hiding something? There's a phone number on that note. Someone wants to tell me something. And you're going to call? Brittany asked. I don't know. I'm scared. What if it's true? Brittany was quiet a long time, considering. Listen, she said at last. If you want the truth, call him. But be ready for anything. Maybe Louis has things he doesn't want to share, and they might not be bad. I can't live with these doubts, Macy admitted. If I don't understand what this means, I'll lose my mind. They stayed at the cafe another hour, talking. Brittany suggested Macy confront Louis directly, show him the photo and see how he reacts. But Macy was afraid. What if he lies? What if he gets angry for being mistrusted? When they parted, Macy's thoughts were in turmoil. She drove home, clutching the envelope and the photo. A deeper anxiety grew inside her. No matter what Lou was hiding, she needed to know. They were husband and wife. There should be no secrets. Louis was already making dinner when Macy arrived. He smiled and kissed her cheek as usual, but Macy viewed him differently now, observing every line of his face, every movement. The likeness between him and the woman in the photo seemed increasingly clear. She stayed silent at dinner, giving one-word answers. Louis tried several times to talk, but sensing her mood, he didn't press. That evening, as they watched TV, Macy quietly studied her husband's profile. Yes, there was a certain softness, but maybe that's just how some men look. That's okay, right? At bedtime, she lay awake, listening to Louis brushing his teeth in the bathroom. Their routine, familiar after 10 years, felt suddenly alien. It was like she'd been living with a stranger all this time. Macy tossed and turned through a sleepless night, hearing her husband's steady breathing beside her. By morning, she'd decided, she had to call the number. The uncertainty tortured her more than any truth, however terrible. At work, she waited for lunch break, then stepped outside. With trembling fingers, she dialed. Her heart pounded so loud she feared she wouldn't hear the reply. "Hello?" a man's voice said. "Hello," Macy began, trying to keep calm. "I found your number in an envelope. You wrote about my husband, Louis Lester." A pause. Then the man said, "I see. So you want the truth?" "My name is Bryce Grayson. Can we meet?" "Yes," Macy replied, though her voice trembled. "Tonight at 7:00 p.m. at the Blue Moon Cafe on Oakland Avenue. Do you know where that is?" "I'll find it. I'll wear a black shirt, sitting in the far corner. Come alone. Don't tell anyone about this meeting, especially Louis." She hung up and felt her legs weaken. Something told her that after tonight, nothing would ever be the same. The rest of work passed in a haze. She went through the motions, but mentally she was elsewhere. Colleagues asked if she was okay. She answered vaguely. Finally, Mr. Patterson, the senior partner, asked if she felt ill. At 6, Macy parked near the Blue Moon Cafe. It was a small place in a rough part of Dallas she'd never visited. Inside was dim, quiet music played. Few customers. She looked around and saw a man in a black shirt in the far corner, back to the door. As she approached, he turned. Bryce Grayson was a black man in his late 30s, strong-built, short hair, alert dark eyes. His face showed hidden bitterness. His eyes carried the weariness of a man who had endured much. "Macy Lester?" he asked, rising. "Yes, that's me." "Please, sit," he said, gesturing to the chair across. "What would you like to drink?" "Coffee," she said, though her throat was dry. Bryce summoned the waitress and ordered 2 coffees. He studied her closely. "You got a photograph," he said, "and you came to find the truth." "Who is this woman?" Macy asked at once. "Why does she look so much like my husband?" Bryce produced another photo from his jacket's inside pocket and laid it on the table. Same photo as the one in the envelope, but larger, better quality. "This is your husband," he said quietly. 15 years ago. Then, he was Louise Morgan. Macy felt the world tilt. She gripped the table's edge, trying not to collapse. "What are you saying?" she whispered. "Your husband was born a woman," Bryce continued, steady. "We dated from 2005 to 2008. Then, he was a completely different person." The waitress arrived with coffee, but Macy couldn't touch hers. She stared at the photo. "Tell me everything," she said softly. Bryce leaned back, gathering memories. "We met in Houston in 2005. I was 23, she was 25. She worked in a beauty salon. Bright, full of energy, nothing like the quiet man you know now." He paused, face darkening with recollection. "We fell in love. I even bought a ring. Then, in 2007, she changed. Became distant, avoided intimacy, always distracted. I worried. I asked. She wouldn't say. And then I found out she was seeing someone else behind my back." Macy felt a curious surge of relief, as though maybe it was just an affair, not something more severe. "Yes," Bryce said bitterly, "but that was only the start. When I confronted her, she said she no longer loved me, that she'd found someone else. We broke up. My life crumbled." He gazed out the window. "Then later, I met a mutual acquaintance. They told me something unbelievable. Louise had decided to change gender. She moved to Europe, had surgery, hormone therapy, everything. She came back as a man, as Louis." Macy's head spun. She clutched her coffee cup as though it were a lifeline. "That's impossible," she whispered. "No," Bryce said sharply. "Medicine can do extraordinary things. Louise became Louis, moved to Dallas, started a new life as though the past never happened." "But why?" Macy asked, voice trembling. "Why did he do it?" Bryce shrugged. Maybe he always felt a man trapped in a woman's body. Maybe he needed a radical change. Or maybe he simply wanted to escape. From me. From everyone who knew him before. Macy sat in silence, absorbing everything. All these years she'd lived with someone who kept the most essential secret from her. Their marriage, intimacy, every shared moment, built on a lie. "How do you know this is true?" she finally asked. "Maybe your memory is wrong." Bryce pulled out his phone, found something and showed her the screen. There, in his gallery, was a photo. Him and a young woman, her same face as in the envelope. Different clothes, different hairstyle. "That was us at a picnic in 2006, he said quietly, before she cheated. "Look at her face, compared to your husband's." Macy stared. The resemblance was beyond dispute. Same eyes, same nose, same lips, even the smile. Exactly hers. "Why tell me all this?" she asked. "What do you want?" Bryce's face hardened. "Justice," he said. "I've carried this pain 15 years. She broke my heart, betrayed our love, and then vanished as if she never existed. She has begun anew, married and is living in contentment. And I've never managed to form a proper relationship with anyone else. And you chose revenge." "I learned of your existence by chance," Bryce went on. "About a year ago, I met the man she was seeing behind my back. He told me that Louise had become Louise and gotten married. I found you. I tracked down where you live." I pondered long and hard what to do. Rage built inside Macy. This man had monitored her, invaded her privacy, destroyed her family in pursuit of his vengeance. "You had no right," she said. "This is our life, our marriage, and he had the right to build his happiness on a lie," Bryce retorted sharply. "Did you know who you were marrying? Did you know your husband was born a woman, that she lived her whole life in the wrong body?" Macy fell silent. She couldn't deny it. "I don't want to tear your marriage apart," Bryce said more gently, "but you deserve the truth. If you can accept it and find peace, that's for you, but hiding something like this from your wife, it's unfair." They sat in wordless tension for several minutes. Macy strove to calm her mind and decide what to do next. Her entire existence had been upended in 30 minutes. "Do you have any other proof?" she asked. Bryce nodded, drawing a folded paper from his pocket. "This is a medical certificate from a clinic in Germany where the operation took place. A friend of mine working at a private detective agency got it for me. It states her real name, Louise Morgan, and the operation date, March 2009. With trembling hands, Macy accepted the document. The text was German, but some words she recognized. The name was there, Louise Morgan, and the section about procedures clearly described gender reassignment surgery. "It could be forged," she said weakly, though she no longer believed her doubts. "Maybe," Bryce agreed, "but you have seen the photos. You know your husband. Didn't you ever wonder?" Macy reflected. Indeed, some things had always seemed odd. Lewis never spoke in detail about childhood. He never showed old pictures. He claimed his parents died young and preferred to leave that period behind. "What do you want me to do?" she asked. "Talk to him," Bryce answered. "Demand the truth. Watch his reaction. If he is honest, he will own up. If not, then your marriage has truly been built on deceit." Macy rose. She felt hollow, as though all her strength had drained away. "I must go," she said. "Wait." Bryce handed her a business card. "If you need more or want to find out more, call me. I know this is hard." She took it and left the cafe without looking back. The air outside was crisp, but she felt no cold. Bryce's words haunted her, the photos flashing before her mind. Could she have really shared 10 years with a man who concealed the most vital truth? The drive home was a blur. She nearly broke traffic laws several times, but made it home intact. Louis's car was outside. He was already home from work. Macy sat for 10 minutes in the car, gathering courage. How could she face him now? How begin the conversation? Pretending nothing had changed seemed impossible. At last, she stepped inside. Louis stood in the kitchen preparing dinner. He turned, offered his usual smile. "Hi, honey. How was your day?" Macy looked at him with new eyes. She saw things she'd never noticed. His features gently soft, almost feminine. His hands slender with long fingers. Even his voice lacked depth for a typical man. "Fine," she answered and moved to the living room. At dinner she hardly spoke. Louis tried several times to talk, but got only short replies. Eventually he said, "Macy, what's wrong? You seem distant." "Nothing much. Just tired. Maybe we should go somewhere this weekend. We haven't in a long while." "Maybe," he said. Later, watching TV, Macy observed his profile furtively, seeking the traits of the woman in the photo. The more she looked, the more similarities stood out. "Louis," she said suddenly, unable to hold back, "tell me about your life before we met." Louis looked surprised. "Exactly what?" "You know, growing up in Houston, your parents dying early, your jobs before the insurance company, friends, girls. You must have had a life before me." Louis stiffened, his face taut. "Why bring this up? The past is past. What matters is now." "I'm curious, in 10 years of marriage you've told me almost nothing about that time." He sighed. "I don't like to think about it. It was painful. My parents died in an accident when I was 23. I was alone, taking odd jobs. I prefer not to dwell on it." Macy stood and left the room, returning moments later with an envelope and photograph from her desk drawer. Louis was on the sofa, channel surfing. "Louis," she said, voice steady, "look at this." She handed him the photo. He took it, studying it with a frown. "Where did you get this? And who is she?" "Don't you know who she is?" Macy asked. Louis looked again, then shook his head. "I've never seen this woman before, though there is a resemblance. Maybe some distant relative? I don't remember someone with that face in my family." "Macy," she said, sitting opposite him, "I met someone today who claims they know you." "Who?" he asked, surprised. "Bryce Grayson. He says you were a woman 15 years ago, and that's your photo." Louis frowned, thinking. "Bryce Grayson," he repeated slowly. "I've never heard that name. Who is he?" "He says you were born Louise, that you underwent surgery in Germany, that everything changed. He told me everything." She smiled. Lewis stood abruptly, face full of confusion. "Macy, do you know what you're saying? That's absurd. I am a man, always have been." He paused. "Resemblances happen." Macy took the medical certificate Bryce gave. "What about this?" she said, showing it. Lewis studied it. "A fake," he said firmly. "A crude forgery. My name has never been Morgan, it's Lester. I've never set foot in Germany." "But Bryce showed me other photos," Macy whispered. Lewis sat beside her, took her hands. "Someone is trying to dismantle our family. This Bryce, whoever he is deceiving you. Maybe he's unwell. Maybe he has some motive. This is nonsense." "Then, have you lost faith in me?" Lewis asked. Macy looked away. "Why would you lie? What do you gain from all this?" "I don't know." Lewis spread his hands. "Perhaps he wants revenge. Maybe someone paid him to hurt us. I can't explain." Macy was silent, absorbing his words. He seemed earnest, calm, not trying to hide anything. "Macy," Lewis said gently, "if you doubt me, let's uncover the truth together. We can involve the police, report Bryce if we must. We can hire a private investigator to verify everything. Would you agree to that?" she asked. "Of course," he replied without hesitation. "I have nothing to hide. I'll agree to any test that proves to you I'm telling the truth." Macy felt torn. His reply sounded sincere, his manner steady. Yet Bryce's claims seemed so plausible, the photos so similar. "I don't know who to believe," she admitted. "Trust me," Lewis urged. "Trust your husband of 10 years, not some stranger with shocking accusations." "I need time," Macy said quietly, rising from the couch. "Take all the time you need," Lewis replied gently. "Just remember, no matter what this Bryce says, I love you, and I've never lied to you." Macy went to her bedroom but couldn't sleep for a long time. Conflicting thoughts swirled in her head. On one hand, Bryce's story was very detailed and convincing. On the other hand, Lewis's reaction seemed utterly sincere. The next day at work, she called Brittany again and told her about her conversation with her husband. "He denies everything," said Macy. "He says it's a forged document and a coincidence that the photos look alike." "How did he explain that?" "Very convincingly." Brittany thought. "I suspected so too. Maybe this Bryce guy really is lying. I don't know. It's a very confusing story." Another week had passed since Macy met Bryce Grayson. Despite all of Lewis's denials and assurances, she could not shake her doubts. The atmosphere in the house was tense. They lived like strangers. He on the couch in the living room, she in the bedroom. Lewis continued to insist on his innocence and suggested hiring a detective, but Macy felt that he was just a very skilled liar. Every day she looked at her husband and saw the features of the woman in the photograph. Every gesture, every word seemed false to her. There were too many coincidences in Bryce's story. The evidence was too compelling. Macy didn't believe that anyone could have constructed such an elaborate lie just for revenge. On Friday evening, she sat in her car near her house for a long time, unable to bring herself to go inside. She couldn't go on living like this. Lewis stubbornly denied the truth, but she knew that sooner or later he would have to confess. She had to force him to tell the truth, no matter what it took. Instead of going home, she drove toward the city center, to a neighborhood she had never visited before. There, near an old factory that had been closed down several years, various shady characters gathered. Macy remembered her co-workers talking about this place. It was where you could find people willing to do anything for money. She parked by an abandoned building and got out of the car. It was already dark and the streetlights cast a dim glow on the street. Two young men were standing near the entrance to an underground passageway, both black, about 25 years old, dressed in sportswear and sneakers. They were smoking and speaking in hushed voices. Macy approached them, her heart pounding with fear and resolve. "Excuse me," she said, trying to sound confident. "I need help." The men looked at her in surprise. A middle-aged woman in a business suit clearly did not belong here. "What kind of help?" asked one, a tall, thin man. I need someone to make someone tell the truth, Macy said, pulling several bills from her purse. I'll pay you. The second guy, stockier, examined the money with interest. What's this about? He asked. I have a problem with my husband. He denies things I know for sure. He's hiding important parts of his past from me. I need you to scare him until he finally admits the truth. How much will you pay? Asked the tall one bluntly. $500, 0 cents, said Macy. He denies everything, but I know he's lying. I need him to confess. The guys exchanged glances. We won't kill him, said the stocky one. Just confront him man to man. Hit him a couple of times if needed. That's enough, agreed Macy. He has to admit that he's hiding the truth about his past from me. Where will this happen? They asked. At our place. He should arrive home from work around 7 tonight. The tall guy introduced himself as Kevin, the stocky one as Jamal. They agreed to meet near Macy's house at 6. She gave them the address and an advance of $200, 0 cents, promising the remainder after the job was done. On the drive home, Macy reflected on what she was doing. Part of her knew it was reckless to hire strangers to intimidate her own husband, but she was convinced Lewis was lying about his past. Bryce could not have invented such a detailed story, and the evidence seemed overwhelmingly convincing. Macy wanted to force the truth out of Lewis himself, to see him finally admit that he had lied. Lewis was not yet home. Macy went to the bedroom and opened the drawer where Lewis kept his gun. It was a small revolver he had bought a few years before to protect the house. Macy had never used it, but she knew exactly where it was. She took the gun in her hands and checked the cylinder. There were 6 bullets. Macy had no plan to fire it. She simply wanted to be ready for anything if Lewis turned dangerous or tried to flee. At 6, Kevin and Jamal arrived at the house. They parked on the next block and walked over. She let them in and explained the plan. When Lewis returned, they would grab him and force him to finally confess that he was really a woman, that he had been lying to her all these years. What if he resists? Kevin asked. Do whatever you must, Macy replied. The most important thing is that he stops lying and tells the truth. At 7 in the evening, they heard a car. Lewis was parking near the house. Macy nodded to the guys, and they hid in the hallway behind the open living room door. Lewis entered the house, hung his jacket on the coat rack as usual, and headed for the kitchen. Macy sat on the sofa in the living room, pretending to read a magazine. Hi, he said cautiously. The chill between them was so thick that he hesitated to address his wife. Hi, she answered without looking up. Lewis walked to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. Just then, Kevin and Jamal leapt out from behind the door and grabbed him. Lewis cried out in surprise, trying to break free, but the men were stronger. What's going on? He shouted. Macy, call the police. Be quiet, Jamal ordered, twisting Lewis's arms behind his back. And don't call anybody. Kevin punched him in the stomach, making him double over, gasping for air. Macy, he moaned. What does this mean? Macy rose from the couch and approached him. Her face was cold and resolved. It means you're going to tell me everything, she said. You will stop lying and denying the obvious. I already told you. I don't know this, Bryce. I've never been a woman, Lewis spat. You know this, Macy, she said coldly. You did. I hear the lies. Now you'll tell me the truth about who you were before. Kevin struck Lewis again, this time in the ribs. He groaned in pain. Tell the truth, Jamal demanded. Stop lying to a woman. Macy, why are you doing this? Lewis looked at his wife with pain and confusion. I'm not lying. Bryce deceived you, he said. Bryce showed me photos, documents, Macy burst out. There's too much evidence for this to be a lie, Lewis shouted. I'm a man. I always have been. Jamal squeezed his hands tighter, and Lewis cried out in pain. Macy, please believe me, he begged. I'm your husband. We've been together for 10 years. 10 years of lies. Macy leaned in close, her face contorted with rage. All these years, you have been lying to me, pretending to be someone you're not. I wasn't pretending, Lewis sobbed through tears. I love you. I always have loved you. Kevin hit him again, harder. Lewis coughed blood. Tell the truth, or it'll be worse, Jamal threatened. "What truth?" Lewis croaked. "I'm telling the truth. I don't know what more you want from me." Macy saw that he continued to deny it stubbornly, and she felt a rage she could not control rising inside her. Even threatened with violence, he kept lying to her face. "Last time," she said slowly, "were you a woman? Did you date Bryce Grayson? Did you have sex reassignment surgery?" Lewis looked at her with eyes full of pain and despair. "No," he whispered. "No, no, and no." "Then explain the photos. Explain the resemblance." "I can't explain something I don't understand," Lewis shouted. "Maybe I have a twin sister I don't know about. Maybe someone faked those photos, but I was never a woman." Kevin raised his hand to strike him again, but Lewis suddenly broke down. "Fine," he cried. "Okay, yes, it's true. Yes, I was a woman. Yes, I dated Bryce. Are you happy now?" Macy froze. He had finally confessed. "Go on," she said quietly. "My name was Louise Morgan," Lewis said through his tears. "I dated Bryce for 3 years. Then I cheated on him and we broke up. I had surgery in Germany and became a man. I moved to Dallas and started a new life." "Why did you hide this from me?" "Because I was afraid of losing you," Lewis cried. "Because I wanted to forget the past. I always felt like a man. The surgery just corrected nature's mistake." "What about our marriage, our intimacy? You lied to me all this time." "I didn't lie about what was important," he shouted. "I loved you. I still do. My birth gender doesn't change my feelings." Macy felt another wave of uncontrollable rage. He had admitted it, but he still tried to justify himself, not seeing the depth of his betrayal. "You stole 10 years of my life," she screamed. "I could have known a real man, had children, been happy." "You were happy with me," Lewis retorted. "We were happy all those years. I was content, even with a lie." "Who you pretended to be?" she asked. When Kevin and Jamal saw that the confession had come, they grew nervous. "Well, he confessed," Kevin said. "Our job's done. Give us the rest of the money and we'll leave." "Don't let him go," Macy ordered. "Hold him tight." "Hey lady, we agreed only to make him talk," Jamal said anxiously. Macy didn't reply. She went to the bedroom and got a revolver. When she returned with the gun, the men's faces changed. "Hey, we didn't sign up for this," Kevin shouted. "Hold him," Macy repeated, raising the gun. Lewis saw it and tried to pull away with renewed strength. "Macy, don't do it," he begged. "We can fix this." "Fix it?" She pointed the gun at his head. "Fix 10 years of lies." "Macy, think about what you're doing," Lewis cried. "I love you." "You don't know what love is," she said coldly. "Love is honesty. All you've known is how to lie." "Hey, we're leaving," Kevin said, trying to let go of Lewis. "This isn't our business." "Don't let him go," Macy shouted. The men exchanged glances, but fear of the armed woman kept them from letting go. "Macy, please, believe me," Lewis whispered. "I'm begging you." "We can be better," he continued. "No," she whispered back. "But you made me a murderer." "Please," he said. Macy looked into the eyes of the man she thought she knew for 10 years. She saw fear, pain, remorse. But it was too late. The betrayal was too deep, the wound too raw. "Goodbye, Lewis," she said, and pulled the trigger. The shot shattered silence in the house. Lewis went limp in the arms of Kevin and Jamal, his head falling back. Blood splashed on the wall behind him. Kevin and Jamal dropped his body and leapt aside, their faces frozen in shock. "You killed him," Jamal screamed. "You really killed him." Macy stood there, gun in hand, staring at the still body of her husband. A strange emptiness filled her. No satisfaction, no relief, only hollowness. "We didn't sign up for this," Kevin muttered, grabbing Jamal's arm. "We have to get out," Jamal said. "What about the money?" "What money?" Kevin exclaimed. "She killed a man." "We'll go to jail too," Jamal said. The men rushed to the exit without looking back. Moments later, the front doors slammed. Then a car started, its engine fading into night. Macy was alone with the body. She lowered the gun and slowly sank to the sofa. It only now began to sink in what she had done. She had taken his life. She had killed the husband she'd lived with for 10 years. She sat motionless, staring at Lewis's body. Blood spread across the floor, soaking the carpet. She had to act, call the police, call an ambulance, but she could not move. Finally, Macy picked up the phone and dialed Brittany. After the third ring, her friend answered. "Hi, Macy, how are you?" "Brittany," Macy said quietly. "I killed Lewis." Silence. "What did you say?" "I killed him, I shot him. He's dead." "Macy, you're not joking." "He's lying here in the living room. I shot him in the head. He confessed, said he was really a woman and had dated Bryce. He lied to me all these years." Brittany was silent for a few seconds, then spoke fast and shakily. "Listen carefully. Call the police now. Say he attacked you. Say you were defending yourself." "But that's not true." "Macy, do you realize what you've done? You'll go to prison for life." "I don't care," Macy said flatly. "He ruined my life. Now it's my turn. He's already dead." Brittany screamed. "Think about yourself now." Macy hung up. She didn't want to speak, plan, or think. What was done was done. She picked up the house phone and dialed the police. "Emergency services," came the voice. "I killed my husband," Macy said calmly. "Come to..." She gave the address and hung up. All that remained was to wait. Macy rose from the sofa and went to the window. Outside it was a normal Friday night. Neighbors walking, windows lit, life going on as though nothing had happened. But in her living room lay a man she both loved and hated. 10 minutes later, police cars pulled up. Red and blue lights danced across the walls. Macy opened the door, walked out with her hands raised. "I killed my husband," she told the first officer. "The gun is on the couch in the living room." They cuffed her immediately and led her to the patrol car. As they drove past houses, Macy saw faces pressed to windows, curious. "Tomorrow everyone will talk about this," she thought. In the back of the squad car, Macy closed her eyes, trying to name what she felt. Remorse? Regret? Relief? She didn't know. All she knew, her old life ended the moment the trigger pulled. And in the silent house, a man lay dead. One who denied the truth for 10 years, until finally he could deny no longer.